There are encounters that don't feel random. They feel like collisions written long before you were born. Have you ever crossed paths with someone whose presence felt like a secret the universe had been keeping from you? A person who didn't just enter your life, but cracked something open inside you? It wasn't comfort. It wasn't safety. It was a violent recognition, as if they were stitched from the fabric of your own unconscious. A reflection you didn't know existed, until it stood breathing in front of you. And then, just as suddenly, reality reminds you, this cannot be. It's a pain so precise, so sharp, it doesn't even feel accidental, as if existence itself designed this fracture, not to reward you, not to fulfill your longing, but to break you open in exactly the place you've spent a lifetime hiding. Carl Jung, the man who dared to translate the language of the unconscious, would look at this moment and whisper, "This is not punishment. This is initiation." Because this isn't about love as you were taught to understand it. It's not about possession, not about stories that end with forever. It's about something far more savage, far more sacred. When someone like this appears, they don't arrive to complete you. They arrive to confront you with everything inside yourself that has been abandoned, silenced, forgotten. They are not your missing half. They are a living mirror. Maybe the timing was impossible. Maybe the distance was cruel. Maybe the lines between your lives were never meant to cross for long. Or maybe they were never meant to stay, only to awaken. This isn't logic. This isn't chance. This is the psyche, speaking in the only language it knows. Symbols, archetypes, encounters that rearrange your very sense of self. Because this person is not what you were missing. They are what you've been refusing to become. That pull, that gravitational force dragging you toward them. It's not about them. It never was. It's the echo of everything in you that you've left unlived. The magnetic tension isn't their power over you. It's your own dormant self, screaming to be reclaimed. Carl Jung had a name for this silent phenomenon: projection. The unconscious compulsion to see in someone else the pieces of ourselves we've disowned, ignored, or never dared to develop. But this is not the usual shadow projection. This isn't about seeing your wounds, your fears, your brokenness mirrored back. This is something far more dangerous, far more sacred. This is the reflection of your highest potential, the version of you that's been exiled, forgotten, the unlived life, staring back at you, dressed in the skin of someone else. The person you cannot have is carrying fragments of your own wholeness. Your task was never to possess them. Your task is to retrieve what belongs to you. That overwhelming intensity, that inability to think straight in their presence, the way they bypass your logic and pierce something ancient, something raw, something that has no words. It's not chaos. It's an alarm, a rupture, a message from your own soul. A message that says, wake up. You've been living small. You've been living numb. And this is what it feels like to be fully, terrifyingly alive. They didn't come to complete you. They came to remind you you were never broken, only unfinished, only unexpressed. The real question was never, why did life bring me someone I cannot have? The question is, what part of me is this person carrying? What is this encounter demanding that I become? Because the love that breaks you open was never meant to destroy you. It was designed to annihilate the version of you that was never real. This isn't heartbreak. It's initiation. The kind of fracture that doesn't happen because something went wrong. It happens because something needed to break. What you felt wasn't about losing them. It was about recognizing yourself. Seeing, for one brief and violent moment, who you could be if you stopped living in exile from yourself. Jung understood this brutal symmetry of life. The most powerful awakenings never come dressed as victories. They arrive disguised as loss, as rupture, as absence, as the unbearable reality of this cannot be. This person didn't wound you. They detonated the vault. The vault where you locked away the parts of yourself that were too wild, too vivid, too dangerous for the small life you had learned to accept. And now, here you are, exposed, cracked open, terrified, alive. They reminded you of something you tried to forget, that you are capable of a kind of love that doesn't belong to this world of transactions, roles, and control. A love that isn't about having or owning. A love that is a state of being. Before they arrived, you called that numbness peace. You mistook safety for connection, comfort for intimacy. You told yourself that what you had was enough. And then, they showed you the difference between living and being awake. The difference between loving someone and falling in love with existence itself. But here's the brutal truth. The person you were, before this encounter, was too small to contain the kind of love you are now capable of. So it had to die. Painful? Yes. Necessary? Absolutely. Like the caterpillar that doesn't transform, it dissolves. It becomes nothing before it can become anything. Jung knew this. The person who shattered you didn't create the wound. They revealed it. Because it was always there, waiting. Maybe without even realizing, you built walls, not brick, not concrete. But walls made of disappointment, of quiet decisions like, I won't risk that again. Maybe over time you convinced yourself that deep love, the kind that shatters timelines and rewrites the fabric of your being, wasn't real. Or worse, that it was real, but not for you. So you did what most do. You settled. You stitched together a life that looked safe on the outside, but was quietly starving on the inside. You told yourself that intensity was a luxury for other people, that passion was dangerous, that the safest way to live was half alive. Then they appeared. A mirror wrapped in skin. A rupture disguised as a person. And suddenly, the walls trembled. Not because they wanted to hurt you, but because their existence made it impossible for you to pretend any longer. This was never about them causing your pain. They exposed it. They dragged it out of the basement of your psyche, laid it bare under the spotlight of awareness, and forced you to finally see what you had buried. The sheer violence of what you feel for them is equal to the depth of the healing your soul has been begging for. This is not punishment. This is a portal, an invitation to return to the version of yourself that existed before the world taught you to shrink, before you traded depth for safety, before you forgot that love was never meant to be a negotiation. Because what you're learning now, brutally, beautifully, is that love is not possession. It's not ownership. It's not about securing a person like a prize. It's about recognition, seeing, being seen, being dismantled by the mystery of someone who reminds you what it means to be fully awake in the presence of another soul. And this is terrifying, because it asks something few are willing to give. Love without guarantees. Love without conditions. Love without the demand for permanence. Because the one who breaks you open isn't teaching you how to have someone, they're teaching you how to be transformed simply by having known them. What they came to teach you is something most people spend a lifetime running from. You can love someone fully, violently, completely, and still let them go. You can hold gratitude for a connection that was never meant to stay. You can be broken wide open by love and emerge more whole than you ever were before, because they were never meant to be your forever. They were meant to be your mirror, the reflection of all the parts of yourself that you abandoned, that you silenced, that you never gave yourself permission to become. This is where Jung's brilliance pierces deeper than most are willing to look. His concept of the anima and animus, the feminine within the masculine within the feminine, isn't some abstract theory. It's the blueprint for why certain people destroy you just by existing. When you meet someone you cannot have, you're not just meeting them, you're meeting the unlived version of yourself, a living embodiment of your own inner wholeness, screaming to be brought back home. The passion you see in them is your own creativity, waiting. The courage they carry is the strength you've been too afraid to claim. The way they move through life, authentic, unapologetic, fully embodied, is the exact way you've secretly longed to inhabit your own existence. But here's the trap. Most believe the only way to access this is through possession, through holding on, through merging with the other. Jung would stare straight through that illusion and tell you, you've got it backwards. You don't need them to access it. You saw it in them, because it's already inside you. Your task was never to capture them. Your task is to reclaim yourself. That pull, that obsession, that gravitational ache, it's not about them. It's your own potential, calling you, daring you, to finally become it. The cruel illusion is believing this is about them, believing the distance, the impossibility, the unbearable absence, is some punishment. But the truth, the one that cuts deeper than any rejection, is that the reason you cannot be with them is because you haven't yet learned to be with yourself, in this fuller, more integrated, more terrifying version of who you actually are. The universe isn't separating you, it's preparing you, giving you space, time, a fracture wide enough for you to step into the person you caught a glimpse of when you stood in front of them. Look at it, brutally, clearly. What exactly drew you to them? Their passion? Their clarity? Their unapologetic way of moving through the world like they were born to take up space? Make a list. Write it down. Because here's the most brutal truth. Everything you admired was never about them. It was a reflection of everything inside you that's been suffocating under the weight of your own denial. The passion you saw, where are you still living numb? The courage they carried, where are you still shrinking? The way they walked through existence, fully embodied. What part of you is still hiding, still waiting for permission to live like that? They were never meant to stay. They were never meant to save you. They came as a rupture, as a violent mirror, as a living embodiment of your own unlived life, and the ache you feel isn't for them. It's for yourself. For the version of you you've been too afraid to meet. Jung called it individuation, the brutal, sacred process of becoming whole. And no, this encounter isn't random. It's precise, orchestrated by something far older, far deeper than your logical mind can fathom. They were sent to show you, you. So stop asking why you can't have them. Start asking who you are meant to become, because you met them. They didn't come to be your future. They came to be your mirror. They didn't arrive to complete you. They arrived to wake you. What you thought was a relationship waiting to happen was never about us. It was about you. About the fracture between the version of yourself you've been surviving as and the version that's been silently waiting to be born. The love you felt for them? That was your own unlived potential, reflecting back at you. The connection that felt like destiny? It was the collision with parts of yourself you buried, neglected, or never had the courage to claim. They were never the destination. They were the signpost, the guide, the catalyst. Because let's be honest, before they showed up, maybe you'd been sleepwalking, accepting ceilings as if they were the sky, telling yourself stories like, "This is as good as it gets," while quietly suffocating inside a version of life that was functional, but not alive. Pleasant, but not profound. Safe, but soulless. Then, there they were, cracking the shell, disrupting the script, making you remember, sometimes violently, what it feels like to be fully present inside your own existence, fully awake to the truth that love isn't something outside of you. It's a force that begins inside. A pulse, a state of being, a remembering of what you're capable of feeling and becoming. Jung understood this with terrifying clarity. The psyche has its own intelligence, its own ruthless agenda for your growth. Sometimes it sends you exactly the person you cannot have, not as punishment, not as cruelty, but as a necessary fracture, because there was no other way to wake you up. So now the question isn't, why couldn't it be? The real question is, what are you going to do with what they showed you? Because the responsibility of becoming is yours now. You are not a name, not a role, not a story. You are a soul wrapped in a temporary body, walking through a temporary world. And the version of you that's been navigating this life is so much smaller than the truth of who you are. The awakening they triggered was never about love in the way you were taught to understand it. It wasn't about them. It was about remembering, about peeling back every layer of noise, expectation, and self-doubt that has buried you alive. They came to ignite something that had been asleep for far too long. They reminded you of what it feels like to be dangerous, to be alive, to be sovereign, to be fully in possession of your own existence. But this awakening was never meant to be tethered to them. It was never about holding on to the source. It was about realizing the source was always inside you. Jung saw this with terrifying precision. Certain encounters are not coincidence, not fate in the fairy tale sense, but necessity. Precision, a sacred collision orchestrated by the psyche itself. Your soul summoned them because it was time. Time to fracture the ceiling you had mistaken for the sky. Time to outgrow the skin you'd been suffocating inside. They arrived to dismantle the version of you that thought safety was enough. To crack open the lie that told you were too much or not enough. And now, their work is done. The reason you cannot be with them is because the job is complete. They woke you up, showed you who you could be. The rest is yours. Because had they stayed, there's a truth most won't admit. You would have become addicted. Not to them, but to the version of yourself that only exists in their presence. And the universe? It won't let you outsource your own aliveness. So what you thought was loss was actually initiation. Not an ending. A promotion. A graduation into the next evolution of who you were always meant to be. Now the responsibility is yours. No more asking why it couldn't be. No more staring at a closed door. What matters now is what you do with what they woke up in you. Because this was never about possession. This was about resurrection, about becoming, about remembering who you were before the world convinced you to forget. No, you don't erase them. You don't pretend they didn't matter. Because they do. And they always will. But they matter in a way that transcends labels like lover or almost. They've become part of your architecture, your mythology, your origin story of becoming. Every conversation, every glance, every fracture, it's written in your bones now. They are the permanent reminder of who you are when you are fully awake, fully alive, fully embodied. The fire they sparked, that's yours now. It doesn't belong to them. It never did. The love you thought was for them was always the love you were starving to give yourself. The passion they ignited, it's the way life feels when you stop living numb. The intimacy you tasted in their presence, it's what happens when you stop negotiating your own existence. Whether they stay, whether they vanish, is irrelevant now. Because the gift was never them. The gift was who you became because of them. They came to awaken you, and they succeeded. Now the mirror has done its job. The question isn't about them anymore. It's about you. So let's make it real. Write this in the comments. I become everything this encounter awakened in me. No more waiting. No more bargaining with the universe. No more shrinking back into the version of yourself that fits someone else's comfort. You've seen it now. You know who you are. And whether they witness it or not, you become it anyway. If this cracked something open in you, like the video, share it with someone who still thinks this kind of pain is punishment, not transformation. And hit the bell, because the next video isn't softer, it's heavier, it's sharper, and it's necessary. This is beyond the shadow. And if you're still here, you were never here by accident.